everybody, and welcome to today's Sunday sermon, which is on the third Sunday of Lent. I hope we are keeping true to the commitments we made at the beginning, or suggested that we do at the beginning of Lent, when we said we should try a little bit of fasting, a little bit of extra prayer, maybe going to Mass more often, and also good works, of course, always there, Christian calling, and also penance, being aware of our desperate need for God's mercy. A couple of days ago, if you were at Mass, you would have heard the story of how Joseph, the son of Jacob, ended up in Egypt. And Joseph was very well received, even though he was sold as a kind of slave into Egypt by his brothers. But he did very well in Egypt, and he was liked very much, so much so that he became prime minister, second person in command to the Pharaoh. And when a famine took place in his home country, Jacob's country, and the brothers, they fled to Egypt because of a famine, and they needed to survive. In other words, that tribe would not survive if they hadn't gone into Egypt, and Joseph hadn't been there to receive them well and was so well liked in that country. 430 years later, history was forgotten, and the new Pharaoh became very wicked towards the Israelite people, the descendants of Jacob and Joseph, because they had grown in great numbers and they were afraid for security in the country. So they began to oppress them. They began to oppress the Israelites, the Hebrews, that's another word for them. And they began the whole era of slavery. And today we have the story of the call of Moses. And God called him, and it's known as the episode of the burning bush. And Moses was being asked by God to go back to Egypt and to rescue the Hebrews so that they can go and make their journey, continue their journey to the Holy Land, the land of milk and honey. Now, what is the significance of this reading? Well, we are like the Hebrews. We are in slavery to our sin and to disbelief, and also in our sins that we commit deliberately, or even the fallen nature that we have. So we need to be rescued, and we have been rescued through Jesus, who came to save us from this slavery. Our Gospel reflection today is from St. Luke's Gospel, chapter 13, verses 8 and 9. We hear in this parable of Jesus that a gardener pleaded with the owner of the vineyard, who wanted to cut down a useless vine tree that was not yielding enough grapes. He said, "Sir, leave it for this year also, and I shall cultivate the ground around it and fertilize it. It may bear fruit in the future. If not, you can cut it down." The gardener is God, who is patient and merciful, and we are the poor vine trees who yield little or bad fruit. Every gardener knows that good fruit is in part dependent on the presence of good soil. When all factors are present, good fruit is possible. Also, the patience of the gardener is extremely necessary for the crops to be produced. The same applies to our lives. The soil in which we are to be planted is the mercy and patience of God. And in His mercy we find the ability to produce Christian virtues in our lives, which are akin to the fruit on the vine tree. Like the sun and rain and warmth, necessary for our gardens, we also are given by God all things needed for our growth in Christian living. We must allow ourselves to be pruned of our sins and selfishness. The graces that we receive from God through the sacraments and through the intervention of God, His graces that He gives us, are like fertilizer that we put in crops and in trees to help them to grow and be fruitful. So in our participation in the sacraments and in good works and in penance and also in prayer, we receive the strength and the wherewithal to become cooperators with God's plan for each and every one of us, which is to bear fruit and to proclaim His gospel to the world. So mercy and patience are the main themes of this reading. There is nothing we can do or achieve that will earn us the mercy of God. But our merciful Lord, sent on mission from the Father to till the soil of our lives, seeks to offer one more chance, and the Father obliges out of love. But what are the fruits we should bear? One time, in a parish, for confirmation, we put a tree in the front of the church during the confirmation ceremony. And for a few weeks before, the candidates for confirmation were asked to choose what kind of fruit is most needed in each of their young Christian lives. So we chose a passage which enumerates the fruits of the Spirit, namely Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 to 25. And I quote, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such there is no law." End of quote. And each confirmation candidate chose and drew a fruit on a stiff piece of cardboard that was placed in the branches of the tree near the altar. Their desire for maybe more peace in their lives, more joy, to endure long suffering, to be more kind, to be good, to be faithful, to be gentle, and to control their lives from the evils of temptations from the devil. As we journey through this Lent, we are aware more of the work that God desires to do in our souls. In other words, the fruits that we should show. Allow God to cultivate and fertilize our souls with His graces and mercy. Say yes to God today and allow His graces to produce abundance of good fruit in our lives. I remind you once again of the 4 things we committed ourselves to at the beginning of Lent: fasting, prayer, good works, and penance. We try to go to confession at some stage during this holy season of Lent. Tuesday next will be the 25th of March, which is the solemnity of the Annunciation of the Lord. We may make an effort to go to church that day when it was announced to Mary that she was to be the Mother of God. May God bless you. Have a beautiful Sunday and have a grace-filled week ahead.